What's up, everybody? Shawn Marshall in the house for the Awaken Your Greatness Summit. And for those of you, if you're tuning in for the first time, I'm going to share what this is about. This is really about, even if you're living like an epic life already, there's that internal knowing that there's another level for you, for you to step into, person for you to become, results for you to create in the world. And that's what this is about, is for you to honor that, trust it, and step into the next cut for you in whatever domain of life that looks like. And so with that being said, I'm psyched for today's guest. Dr. Patti is an absolute rock star. Essentially, you're considered the mother of sex coaching, and you're a clinical sexologist, a sex educator, speaker, author, workshop leader. Dr. Patti's done over 40 DVDs for couples sexual enhancement, just freaking epic. And you're also the co-founder of Sex Coach U, where you train people to be sex coaches, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so awesome. I'm excited to have you here. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I've been doing this work for a long time, and it's definitely my passion. And I love that we're talking about how to awaken your greatness, because that's what my mission has always been about for my students, for my clients, for those people I train around the world, and really as a voice for greatness, to honor and really hold space for our own greatness, and to come from, it's interesting what's coming through me right now, to come from a place of honoring and respecting and kindness, because those are aspects of greatness, and we need that so much in our world today, those aspects of humanity. Don't you agree?
I love that. I do agree. And that's what I wrote down. And it was like fascinating, because we were introduced by a mutual friend, and I had told him I want to talk to a sex coach. And then our first conversation, like, we didn't talk about, that's not what we really talked about at all. We really talked more about like the state of the world and, stuff that was happening and the way we're treating each other. So I love that. I love that you're bringing that in. I mean, honor, respect, and kindness absolutely are aspects of greatness. And it's like desperately needed in the world right now.
Yes. And pleasure. A lot of my way. Okay, so pleasure, we now know scientifically that pleasure is actually a gateway, a pathway, an element of health, of wellness. And my work it's interesting, my work has always been about wellness. I've always been a health educator. For many, many years, in fact, probably almost my whole career, I've been about sexuality wellness. Sex is really an essential natural part of being human, and we're embodied as sexual beings from conception to death, interestingly enough. And there's neuroscience and science to differentiate that, and it's so important to look at why that sense of honoring and respecting and being kind is actually part of healthy couples relationships. I'm feeling that now. It's interesting, because I think that as we're speaking today, we're in a fairly dark time in the world. There are a lot of bad things, a lot of forces that pull us down energetically and in some ways spiritually. And my work has always been about elevating the spirit and seeing the best in people. And that's why I use a coaching modality rather than a therapy modality, because it's about lifting people up and holding that bar high for their greatest good, right? So there's so much we can talk about. Get me started.
Get you started. We'll go anywhere that we need to go. I agree with you. It's an interesting time there. I agree. There are a lot of dark forces right now pulling us in different directions, and so many distractions, happening, hot button topics, like a new one every day, that is vying for our attention, and emotional real estate, mental real estate in each of our minds and hearts. And it's easy to get distracted and feel so many people, and we're so connected, if you will, through technology, yet I can also feel like we're so alone with how divisive so much of the world is now.
Yeah, and I think that, what I was beginning to say, and I got kind of hijacked into something else by myself, is that pleasure is a part of health and wellness. And
Yeah.
as a clinical sexologist, so much of my work has been about debunking myths and bringing about sex positivity, but also accurate, comprehensive information so that people get the truth. Because it's so easy to just go to your smartphone or your device and ask Dr. Google, well, what do I do if I have this? Or what's the answer to this? Or, oh, everybody else is having stupendous sex and we're not, and da 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 da. And all that really negative self-talk or mythology that people carry harms and hurts them. And that's a lot of the work that I do, is really helping people look at our sexual pathways as pathways to healing, to wholeness, and to pleasure, because pleasure is really the outcome and the process of what our sexuality can bring us, regardless of whether we're alone or with a partner or a whole group of people.
I love that. Okay, tell me something. You're right. There's so many ways that we can take this, and the one, like, what's coming through to just throw out there as you're talking about pleasure, and you're the expert on this. So you tell me, there's been so much demonization of sex, especially outside of marriage, right? Like through religious institutions. That's been like a common thing that's been taught, like, don't do it. And I think a lot of people ultimately end up feeling gross about it, or dirty about it, or wrong about it. Even some that they get into a relationship, a monogamous relationship, and still have those like that, like residual, so what's your experience around people who have blocks that have been like, sort of taught that sex is bad, or it should only be done a certain way, or, that sort of thing?
Well, I think that I have a very active spiritual life. It is not necessarily a religious life. And religion, organized religion, has not really been the friend or a positive space for expressing and celebrating joyfully our sexuality and our sexual expression. We know that. And one of the things that I always teach is that there's a triumvirate, a trio of emotions that really get in our way around our sexuality and around our sexual pleasure: fear, guilt, and shame. And the big one is shame. And it's toxic shame. It's a shame that there's something wrong with me. It's not what I do, it's me. It's so intrinsic. And I think that helping people to, like, my methodology is a very holistic one. I actually help my clients and those people that I train to help their clients to unpack all that. We have to look at our mental state, our emotional state, our physical state. That's where we think of sex as a body thing. It's way more than just the body. And my model also encompasses energy and spirit. So spirit isn't religion, it's not spirituality necessarily, unless somebody wants to look at a spiritual pathway, which can bring sex to an ecstatic level of connection and of transcendence and of pleasure and of love. The highest vibration is actually love, something our world needs more of right now. And helping people to uncover my whole approach as the mother of sex coaching is really my model and signature system, which helps people look at, where are you stuck? Where are you stuck in your thinking or your emotional feeling state, or even physically, where are you stuck? Maybe you have a longing to try something, and that's where the shame comes in. It's like, I could never ask my beloved or my partner or my lover for the night to do that, or let me do that. And so much of the work is about helping people find their authenticity and their power. And that's also about awakening greatness. I was thinking about this before, that there are kind of 3 levels to the Awaken Your Greatness theme. And one is for clients, this is my work, my spin on it. For my clients, that's really what I'm there for. I'm there to help them know who they are and help clear the boulders out of the road. And that's awakening their greatness as a sexual being. Then there's also helping people who want to work with other people and help serve them. Service is the highest value that I think we can come from as clinicians, as educators, as coaches, as as healers. And so that's where I also help people awaken through Sex Coach U. That's been my baby for the last 12 years, creating this online training program that I've trained like hundreds of certified sex coaches now in over 75 countries. So this teeny weeny little project and idea is now more than a teeny weeny project and idea, and is having ripple effects all around the world. But also, I feel so strongly, I love mentoring people. I just love being, kind of like the mama. I sometimes tell myself, Mama Bear is in the room, and or Mother Bird, or whatever the metaphor might be, because I have that sense of I just want to nurture the people who surround me and empower them and awaken them to their full potential. And that's greatness. So I love that we can have this conversation around something so sticky as sex.
I love it too.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. Yeah, no pun intended with teeny weeny, what you said a little while ago.
Whoops, get that out of the room.
Yeah. How did you, let me ask you, I just want to put this out there. You said this in our first conversation. And it may be rude. Is it rude to ask you your age?
Okay. You're looking at a 75-year-old woman.
Yeah, it's crazy. Your energy, your vitality of a like Olympic athlete, in her 20s. Like, so I just wanted to put that out there because it's thank you for like sharing that, because you're a model for vitality.
I think it's important that those of us who are loud voices in the world that are pro-sexuality, that are about opening up sexual freedom for people, sexual rights, sexual health, sexual freedom, that we walk our talk. And I've never had a facelift. It's not my real hair color, but this is really me. And this is really what 75 can be like and look like. However, it takes working on ourselves, and it takes a lot of polishing and owning who we really are to get to that. And then landing in a place where you go, you know what? The journey of life is really a journey to self-acceptance. I'm going to say that. That's what it's all about. There's only one relationship you have your entire life long, and it's with yourself. So you better get that straightened out. And it's also, I love working with my peer group. My specialty is sexuality and aging, and working with the boomer generation because I'm the first wave of the baby boomers, and they are kicking and screaming, and we are not aging, and we're going to F our way until our deathbed. And I love that. And yet some of them can't walk anymore. They can't keep it up. They don't lubricate. Sex is painful. They don't know how to find a partner. They're scared. They feel like they had to close shop. Yeah, on and on and on. So I'm the beacon I'm their lighthouse to awaken them. That's really my mission from my client perspective. So thank you for asking.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. You're an inspiration. I mean, literally. So I love that you shared that, because I know that's inspiring to others. And I was going to ask you, so you kind of answered something. My next question was, what's this generation coming to you for? So you answered it like, I can't get it up. No lubricating. I'm fearful. I can't even walk. How do I get into a relationship? Those are some of the ones that I remember. So like, where do you start with somebody who's like 75 and hasn't had a sex life for quite a while? God, where do you go from there to creating like a thriving sex life at that age?
So I have clients who are 75 or even older who have thriving sex lives. And I have clients in their 20s who don't have any sex at all, especially if they spend their lives sitting in front of what we're doing right now, which is living in front of a computer. And the delusional thinking that taking out, I don't have my phone in front of me, that taking out a smartphone and tapping on it is a real relationship. It's not. And it's the interferer of real intimacy is what I observe. So all of my couples that I work with, I tell them, I want you to agree to a couple of things. These are our ground rules. One of them, I won't say all of them, but one of them is you are willing at night while you share a meal, or whenever you two, if it's a two, share a meal, to go on an electronics fast, e-fast time. Put the damn phone down. And don't let it continually interrupt your flow, because sex occurs when we're mindful, when we're present, when we're in a relaxed state, and then we can build up the sexual tension, the appropriate tension for excitation and arousal. But if we're not relaxed, we're not here, but we get hijacked neck up. So here we are, like, up here, like, oh my God, I got a text, I got to answer it. Oh no, is that my boss? Don't do that. Put your phone away. Give yourself permission, which is one of the keys to sexual wellness, permission to let that go and spend that quality time. You have to have quality time. This kind of time, me and you kind of time, in any sexual and or intimate relationship, or it's not going to thrive. That's just the way it is. And, the biggest culprit in some ways for the older person, but actually I see it lifelong, is shame around body image. This is one of the big issues. And, when we think about Awaken Your Greatness, I'm going to keep coming back to the theme.
Love it.
We're living in a world, well, in the United States, and I know we're global as we have this beautiful conversation, because that's what summits can do. That's the beauty of technology and online life, is that we can all talk to each other and be with each other anytime we want, virtually, from anywhere. But
we're going to touch dozens of countries with this.
Absolutely. But the thing is that in America, one of our greatest health crises is obesity. And how we see ourselves absolutely comes back like a boomerang into how we feel about our sexiness. And there's a movement today around fat pride, for example. That doesn't mean everybody can get on that bandwagon. And there are people who don't get on that bandwagon for health reasons. And how we see ourselves, whether we're too thin, my hair is falling out. A lot of young men that I've worked with over the years have felt shame because they're losing their hair. And, I say bald is sexy. And this is an important example that when I work with a client, I look for what is, and I look to encourage and invite my client to accept what is and then work it. Turn that around into an asset, not a liability. I once had a young man, I think he was 27 years old, and he was really going bald. And he had it was really cute. He had a lot of hair on his neck and his chest, which I could see through his shirt, because obviously we're a talk only modality as sex coaches and clinical sexologists. We don't touch our clients. And so here he was sitting in my studio where I did my sessions, and his hair really was almost gone. And I said, don't you know that a lot of women find bald as sexy? Because he was heterosexual. And he said, really? I said, yes, I hear it all the time. And you're a teddy bear. Look at this gorgeous chest hair that you have. If you can just own who you are and how you are and go for what works for you, you can attract women who just love that you have a bald head and they can run their fingers through that wonderful teddy bear chest. He went, wow. And he ended up shifting, completely changing his narrative internally, and started attracting women. It was so beautiful. And that's just one tiny example of how powerful it can be to have someone really be there for you and help you shift that focus away from the negative to the positive. And accepting how and who we are is really, it's not so easy,
No, it's not.
It's really the journey that we're all on, isn't it? On all levels, especially around our bodies. And as we age, it gets harder and harder to do that. Because this is what I say, as we age, 3 things are going to happen, aside from dying. We're all going to die. We're going to slow down, we're going to dry up, and we're going to droop. So get ready for it and be okay with that. And don't expect you're going to be like or look like you're 16 or 20-year-old self when you're 70, because you're not, and enjoy the ride. That's what it's really all about, is enjoying the ride of life and the ride of a sexual engagement.
Yeah, like a lot of this is it's a lot of the mental breakdown around self-image comes down to expectations, right? Like when you're talking about slow down,
Yes.
droop,
Yeah.
dry up, it's like an expectation. I shouldn't be slowing down, but I am. And
Yeah.
now it's like something's wrong with me. I shouldn't be drooping, but I am. And similar with the body image that you're talking about with the guy, like, isn't it? I find it's so fascinating how our perception of what we think other people think we should be like or look like,
Yes.
or what we think they think is acceptable. Like, oh my God, I'm losing my hair. It's like, that's a fact, but would it really matter if I didn't have some concept of what I thought that you thought about it and what everyone else thought
Exactly.
about it and like what it meant? But what's
Yeah.
so powerful and sexy is confidence. I mean, I'd love to hear your take on this. And I'm sure, like, I just have the image of this gentleman you're speaking about where he, you know, started losing his hair and then got all this hair here. And then like suddenly you gave him a different perspective on it, which could allow him to, a new way to tap into his own confidence. And then that confidence in like owning his baldness or owning the chest hair,
Yeah.
that's sexy. It's the same
Yeah.
body, but
Yeah.
who he's being is different.
But it's all about energy. So
Yeah.
sexiness comes from the inside. It's not an outside job. I once
Yeah.
had, I started my private practice in New York City and then moved to Los Angeles, where I'm based at the moment. And I remember once having a person who was my client, who was a very overweight woman, and she did hair. That was her thing. And she was so sexy and so beautiful. And at first she was like, oh, but I'm a large, plus size woman. And I was like, look at yourself. And she actually had this incredible shift when she went, wait a minute, it's not my size. It's how I carry that. It's how I feel about that. And that sense of juiciness and sexy and sensuality. And then the confidence, but you have to clear the boulders, you see. This is why I created my MEBS model, which is mind, emotions, body, energy, and spirit. You've got to clear all these negatives, all these blockages that people carry. Sometimes it's information, sometimes it's just a misplaced sense of self. Sometimes it's that. And so helping people to clear all that, but then you have to install positive messaging. So, first we computer metaphor, because we all live on computers, right? Like first we uninstall the negative operating system, then we install or reinstall a new operating system that is positive, and that's based on reality and truth, because that's part of, I actually, sometimes I use humor a lot when I work with my clients and my students, because I believe in that, and it's relaxing to interject humor. And
Totally.
I also, feel very strongly that there are ways that we can help people to just look at, well, what do I do next? And sometimes people look at me and they're like, oh my God, that you made that so hilarious. I can like talk about it with you. Or I'm sometimes like the fierce mother lion, and I am like tough love it with my clients, like, Mark, we've been having this same conversation now for 6 months, and you're not implementing anything that I've suggested. So how can I help you take this incredible opportunity for change and use it and implement it? Because if you don't, you're not going to change. Your outcome isn't going to change. So there's such a wonderful relationship that gets established around a subject that is so taboo for so many people. We can open a computer and find porn very readily and easily, unfortunately, for those who don't have the proper filters on it. But at the same time, there's such a block against talking accurately and openly and truthfully about sex. And you alluded to that. Sometimes the reason that couples fail sexually and intimately and can't sustain a relationship is they have too much shame, fear, or guilt around talking to their partner. They can do sex, but they can't talk about sex. And that's
Yeah,
tragic. That's just tragic.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's tragic to not be able to have a conversation. Just a conversation. How
Yes.
scary is that? Like, think about the
Yeah.
intimacy of sex, like entering another person or having another person enter you. That's so
Yeah.
freaking intimate. Yeah, you could
Thank
do
you.
in with that example that you gave, it's you could do that, but not like use your
Yeah.
voice and connect your thoughts and experiences to
And
words. Like how
experience it.
scary that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're afraid of rejection, or you're embarrassed, or you haven't cleared those cultural and or religious or family values that, came into you when you were young, that you carry, that are like ghosts in the closet, that you haven't exorcised out of your thinking yet. And that's where a sex coach or a clinical sexologist comes in. But I was going to say something else, but the thought just ran out of my head. But it'll come back. And it's really about having courage. I find that when I introduce this to couples, I actually have couples construct a contract of agreement. I know what I was
Hmm.
going to say too. So that contract of agreement is really, especially if they've agreed to be monogamous, faithful, loyal, and they stop having sex, because 95% of my clients are sexless when they come to seek out my services. Sexless, no sex. Haven't had sex in 2 to 5 years. One client, 15 years. They had been married
In a
forever.
relationship,
Yes, with each other.
15
Right.
years.
Yeah, yeah. That took a long time to help them. But
Wow.
when there is that breakdown, there are so many things to repair. And again, it's like uninstalling all of it. I look at it, I work very metaphorically, like it's a ship, and it's taken a lot of hits, and there's a lot of water leaking, and many
Mm.
people come to me when that ship's about to sink. And I don't have a magic wand, I tell them, but I also have a lot in my toolkit. So I was going to say something about what you just said, because it's so cool. You actually said something that I say to my clients occasionally, which is when you put a body part of yours in another person's body.
Mm.
And you know what I call that?
Mm.
Sacred.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. That's a big awareness to embrace, that taking in another human being into your body energetically is so profound, and yet we cast it aside like it's just fluff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that you've brought in that energy around what sex actually is. I don't mean that's your intention. I mean, if we get to really pause, this is the slowing down intentionally. This is like being mindful means stop, breathe, think, feel, be in the moment. Imagine what that means. It's huge. So
Yeah.
my work takes people very deep into the soul of self and the soul of our sexuality. And you just allowed me to say that. So I'm so
Yeah. No,
excited you get it.
yeah, it's such a beautiful thing. Like even in another context, I think about how intimate eating is. Like, because you're doing the same thing. Like you're taking a substance and placing it into an orifice that leads
Yeah,
into your body. Like, holy crap, that's
yeah,
freaking, and we're just so unconscious about it, right? Like throw it all in,
yeah,
like, so it's so intimate.
yeah.
Eating is such an intimate thing and sacred as
I love
well.
that. Yeah.
And
So here's a cool thing. One of the my favorite thing that I do in the world is once a year, pre-COVID, I lead an experiential retreat in
mm,
Eastern Europe. 6 days, 6 nights at a retreat center, like a gorgeous tantra farm somewhere in the woods. And people come from all over the world. It's a small group, but I have a huge team that goes with me to this to care for everybody. And one of the early exercises is a feeding ritual. And
Mm.
so we pair people up, not by gender, we pair them up. One lies on the mat and the other, and they have a blindfold, so they don't know who's feeding them. And they're only allowed to whisper very quietly to one another because it is a sacred container. And it is so intimate. And we create this, it's like a banquet of holy food in a way,
Yeah.
like pieces of a tangerine and warm chocolate sauce and small marshmallows, things that are gooey and sensual, and honey and water, of course. And it's just so remarkable to see what happens to people who are with a stranger and allow that intimacy, and then to get to know, how intimate are you willing to go? Are you safe enough? Do you feel safe enough within yourself and or with another person to allow someone to place food in your mouth?
Mm.
Because that's an awakening as well about, where are my boundaries? And healthy boundaries are so important to know about yourself and then to articulate to whoever is around you. And that's one of the things that, coming back to couples, when I have them write a contract, I have them write a contract that sets the boundaries, like a big fat picture frame around their relationship rules. And one of them is, getting back to sexlessness, if they are agreed to be in a monogamous, loyal, faithful relationship and they stop being sexual, they're in violation of their contract.
I love that. Yeah.
That is a wake-up call for them. They go,
Yeah.
oh. And so then we don't have energy leakages where somebody may see someone who looks hot to them, or have, someone who's, they're texting on some app that their partner may not know about, and they maybe get excited about, but yet they feel a little guilty or dirty about. You see, if it's consensual and out in the open, there's nothing dirty about any of this. It's when it's hidden and not with consent. So I
Totally.
love this contract concept of the picture frame around the relationship rules and really holding people accountable. That's where the tough love mother comes in, but the nurturing mother is always present.
I love that. I love the contract. It's a great idea. And I
Isn't that
love the
cool?
intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I love the intimacy
Yeah.
idea with feeding each other. It seems like that could
Yeah.
be, I've done that in a training as well, similar to what you talked about. And
Yeah.
it was so uncomfortable the first time. First time I did it, it was like, wait, I'm gonna have a guy. I think I was with a guy. I was like, I'm gonna have a guy
Yes.
feed me. Like, no, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I don't know about that, but it's you know, forces you to force me to be trusting, open,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of power in that. And
There's
then
also a learning on the other side. So when I think that, okay, so I think that biologically speaking, cisgendered, which is what we say, non-trans, non-binary men, are so socialized to lock it out, not to be emotive, not to be sensitive. And then women say, oh, I want a sensitive man, but I want him to be a man's man and a manly man. So guys are really stuck. And then the Me Too movement, we don't have enough time to even deconstruct how difficult it is to be a heterosexual cisgendered man in today's world. We don't have time for that. And my heart goes out because we need to be building bridges, not creating walls between us.
mhm.
But I think it's so important to use a little teeny exercise. I don't know, I'm using teeny twice today, but to use an exercise like the one we just discussed, which is a feeding ritual, like taking tangerines, apple slices, s'mores, whatever it is, and putting a blindfold over the partner and feeding the partner with consent and communication about, does this feel okay? Do you want this? Would you like me to peel the grape? Do you want to bite it? Do you want me to put the whole grape in your mouth? There's something so profound about that, because you learn how to give in such a connected
Mm,
way. And this is what I see. So many of my couples and my clients don't really know how to give and receive. They're stuck in what they think it should be instead of what is. And if we could be caregivers and stewards of connection and pleasure to each other, we would have a revolution in terms of how relationships work. Don't you agree?
I agree with you. Yeah. And I love what you're saying, because it really highlights the fact that what you think, let's say your partner wants, what's that based on? Like, where did you get that information that that's the way to do it? Like, if we're talking about sex, like that's the way to do it with your partner, and maybe your partner likes this particular thing and maybe not. And it's like, it comes back to having expectations. And when your expectation, like, there's a breakdown, like you try something and it doesn't work. And then it's like, well, I expected that would work because it worked with someone else or something like that.
Exactly.
And then it's like,
well, it worked every time I did the last time. Well, you're not
and
with
it didn't
that
work
person
this time.
anymore.
Yeah. And now I must suck. There must be something wrong with me, because I can't make that technique work on you.
Yeah. And I sometimes when I speak to my trainees, my grads or my students, either in my training programs at Sex Coach U or elsewhere, there's this funny thing that I'm beginning to say, which is that in some ways, I feel that as sexuality experts, we're secret keepers. There's something that I feel, because there's so much noise in the world. There's so much garbage information in the world, and so much pressure. So many people are living in a pressure cooker about what they should be or what they should do or should have. And there's something that I have answers to, like 50 different issues sexually that a client may bring to me. I know how to help them get over that, because I have all this stuff in my head and my toolkit that I can offer them. But it's a secret. It's like, if you're having erectile problems, we call it erectile dysfunction from a medical model. I call it penis problems from the other side, maybe, or, a non-complying penis, it might be, or unhappy. There are ways to allow it to become happy. And what might that be? And something as simple as an $8 penile ring made of rubber that stretches around the semi-erect penis at the base and even under the testicular sac, that alone could change everything. Or should I be using Levitra or Cialis or Viagra? Well, it depends. Or on and on and on and on and on, because we're trained, and I'm trained, and I train others in this beautiful bell curve of the holistic model, from what is your total range of testosterone, and make sure that you take these 6 tests when you go to your urologist, all the way to let's do a releasing ritual at a Malibu beach front. Because that's what holistic really means. It means you take everything that's humanly possible to bring to the client experience, from my perspective, and share that, and dare to go outside the box, because that's what I love doing the most. I'll say to my client, I'm getting an idea right now. It's going to come out really strange, but how about this? And I go, yes, you nailed it. So
I love this. I love this topic that came up. And I wanted to ask you about this, so it's perfect. Yeah. This world that we're in, where, like you said, Cialis, Viagra, right, all these medications to help men, get it up, if you will. I have this belief around that. And what do I know? I'm an idiot when it comes to this type of stuff. I'm not a doctor, but here's my belief around it from the emotional work that I've done. That the emotions, your emotional state and mental state, and like you said earlier, physical state, spiritual state, these pillars. And there was a 5th one you said. How I understand there's probably a place for medication, like truly a place for medication like that, in that, like Viagra or Cialis. But I also have this belief that probably a large majority of men who are on a, I'm not asking you to like treat or diagnose anyone. That's not what I'm doing, but that are on something like that, maybe it's a Band-Aid. Like how much of it ends up being a Band-Aid, where there's some belief patterns, or there's an emotional, there's like a breakdown in the relationship where they haven't talked in a while. Like you said, they haven't been intimate in a while. There's shame, there's guilt. And it's like, how much of this can actually be fixed through, like, fixed, I don't mean like from a sense of being broken, but how much of it can be fixed from handling your emotional state, handling your mental state, talking, being intimate, to where maybe we don't need to
So
lean on
most
medication to that degree.
erectile challenges are psychogenic, meaning
Mhm.
it's your head right here, this head.
Yeah.
And one of the things that that I love helping my clients understand, and this is true for cisgendered men and cisgendered women. Again, we live in a world where there are so many different identities, but that's what we're really talking about here. So men go neck up. So they're in their bodies, they're having a sexual experience, the beginning of one usually, where they're hoping they're going to produce an erection and they're really worrying they're going to lose it. That's what's going on. And these drugs, the three, I call them the three brothers. Viagra was first. The second one we don't even hear about anymore is Cialis, and a daily Cialis. These drugs really do help with keeping blood flow into the erection once it's occurred. It does not mean they produce erections. They don't. And that's one of the difficulties that customers have when they purchase these through their doctor's prescriptions or online. And what happens is it's performance anxiety. That's the culprit. That's what's wrong in most bedrooms. Performance anxiety is actually the ghost in the room for males and females for the most part. And here's how it works. He's in a sexual experience, probably the beginning of it. He's got a lot of things rolling through him energetically, physiologically. I could go through the whole cycle, but I'm not going to. We don't have time. But what happens is there's a moment where he goes, oh, I hope I don't lose it. So guess what's happened? He's left his body neck down and he's now gone neck up. So now he's up here. Oh shit, I hope I don't lose it. Oh no, I hope she doesn't see this. Oh no, oh damn, it's not hard. Oh, I hope it comes back. Yada, 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 yada. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
That is performance anxiety. And that is, even though anxiety is a word that diagnostically mental health people will call an emotional disorder, actually it's self-talk. It's fear, yes, but it's the thinking. It's the thinking that gets in the way. So my method, I have a behavioral methodology, which is to help men get out of the performance anxiety. And it's actually a very simple technique. Well, not easy, but simple. And it's called FOPS, FOPS. And I tell my male clients, you got to learn to FOPS it. So you notice it, stop, like, oh shit, I'm out of my body. I'm up here in my head thinking. Breathe into your body, come back into the body zone, and focus on pleasurable sensations. It's so simple. It's not so easy, but it's really simple. The same thing happens for women.
Pleasurable sensations.
FOPS, FOPS.
Yeah.
So if you focus on pleasurable sensations, your mind now has a job to do. And that job is, oh my God, oh, I'm warm. Oh, I can feel the skin of my partner. Oh, there's a breeze in the room. Well, you don't really want to go to the breeze in the room. You want to come back to you and the physical sensations, unless the breeze is caressing your skin as you're holding your beloved or your stranger partner, whatever it is, whoever it is with you.
Yeah.
And you're feeling sensations. And that's where your attention is going. Sensation, sensation, sensation. And so as you focus on sensation, you're hijacking your brain away from fear talk. I hope I don't lose it. I hope she doesn't think that I'm a or he. And the other thing that happens is for females, it's around orgasm. So many females worry that they are taking too long and that their partner does not like what he, she, or they is doing and are bored or tired or judging her. This is especially true for oral genital contact on a woman, going down on her, and for penetrative sex, penis and vagina sex. And so what we have to understand is that 90% of women experience orgasm through direct or indirect clitoral stimulation. And your best friend is going to be a sex toy, not necessarily your partner. But
and you said, wait, inside of what you just said, you said, if I'm make sure I heard you right, for a woman, one of the anxiety producing thoughts is, am I is he or she, is this person bored with me? Like, is that like,
Am I taking too long?
am I taking too long?
And
Yeah.
will I ever get there? So the
Will I
more
ever get there?
you
Yeah.
push to have your orgasm, the less likely you are to have your
Yeah.
orgasm.
It's like
Because
quantum physics. Like, where's the particle? You're looking
exactly,
at it and then it's gone.
exactly. And the reason is you have to let it happen. You don't make it happen. And
Mm,
that's where
I love
couples get
that.
stuck. Isn't that great? If you just
That's
let
great.
life happen, you're going to have a
Just
better
let it
life.
happen.
Let it happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Back to
Let
intimacy then, right? Back to
yes.
intimacy and
And
being
trust.
present and
Yeah. And
trust.
trust. And
Just
guess who you have to trust the most?
yourself.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, this is brilliant.
you have to trust that if you lose it, meaning either an erection or that buildup, it's an arousal pathway that has many components. But let's just say, we'll just say you're going up the mountain and you're stuck on the edge called the plateau and you can't go over. And then you slide back down. You can build that up again. In fact, usually the next time you build it up again, it's higher and stronger.
Mm.
And the same thing is true of an erection. There are so many hilarious sayings, like, a good erection is a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure you do.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know. But it's going to come back. It really is, unless you've
Yeah.
ejaculated. If you've ejaculated, meaning you, the man listening, watching us, then it's too late because you've passed the point of no return. So you can tell I'm like an encyclopedic font of educational information. And there's so much. This is why I feel like we're secret keepers. There's so much to know, and so few people know their own bodies. Most of the men, like almost 90% of all the males I have ever worked with, don't understand or know that they actually have a two-phased system, that first you experience orgasm, then ejaculation. They don't know that.
Mm.
That's
Okay, wait, give me
revolutionary.
give me 1 sec because I don't know if it's me or you, but the audio's getting like choppy. I'm just gonna just really quick, I'm gonna just keep that point. Let me just pause the recording for a second and then we'll
Yeah,
come up and we'll see if we can handle it really quick.
place to cut it.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, it sounds clear. So let's pick up right
Yeah.
there where,
Okay.
yeah.
What's really amazing is that about 95% of all the men that I've worked with as clients don't understand or know that their sexual response has two phases. First is the orgasm itself. Second is ejaculation. I know I
Mm.
said orgasm. I don't know why I said it that way. Orgasm is how we say it, just as we say clitoris, not clitoris. But that's so sad to me that men don't understand their own processes within their bodies. Then the same thing is true for women. Many women don't even know their sexual anatomy well enough to be able to tell a partner what they need and what they want. And I believe that there is a distinction so that we experience the full potential of our sexual pleasure in a sexual act, alone or with somebody else, to know what we need. Because for women, one of the odd things is that our bodies respond to changing it up. It's interesting. Our brain is wired, dopamine response. Our brain is wired for variety. So what
Mm.
is exciting is surprise and variety on a neurotransmitter level. But there's this other distinction, which is that the female body is wired in such a way that most women report they have a groove that the stimulation gets into. Let's say that their partner is on the I know this doesn't look like one, but on the clitoris.
Yeah.
I do have visual aids, but we didn't prepare for that.
That's not what it
So
looks like.
let's
All right. This is new. I'm learning.
we need to book a session. So let's say this is the clitoris. This is the hood of the clitoris. This is where the little pearl sticks out. Here's the urinary opening. Here's the vagina. Here's the anus. Okay, that's
Okay.
the structure. And this is called the vulva, not the vagina. The vagina is the canal, the tube. But let's say this is the clitoris. We'll just bring it down. And she may need a really hard in order to experience an orgasmic release. She may also need a light circular touch. And usually what you hear women say to their partner when they're being clitorally stimulated is, don't stop. Because she's in the groove. She's like, I'm at the top of the mountain, and if you keep going, I'm gonna go over the mountain and experience the waterfall. And that's so important to understand. So changing it up, but also consistency when you reach that place, that point of high excitation, high arousal, the plateau phase, we used to call it. That's important to understand for partner sex and alone, because if she's self-stimulating with the toy or her hand or thinking off, I actually know someone who can do this thing called thinking off, no touch, full body orgasm through thought. But she's unusual. So that kind of understanding, this is where the secret keeping comes in again, isn't it?
Yeah,
I just feel like there's so much people deserve to know and understand, but it's complex. It's not a simple thing, our sexuality.
No, it's not a simple thing. And I agree. I see where like shame can come into so many different aspects of it as we go through. Like that whole process that you're talking about has so many opportunities to, you know, get thrown off track, if you would, to get the performance anxiety, like while it's happening, even like while you're even in that phase where like maybe from a male perspective, like his woman is going up, you know, that consistency that you're talking about going up the mountain. And I know from my experience, I don't know if I've never talked to guys about this exact, I never talked about this exact thing, but I know from my experience, that part, even though it's stimulating for her, is stimulating for me too. Like when she's getting even more stimulated, it's so stimulating. And then like that could take me over the edge as well, like with her or even right before her at that moment. And that brings in like a whole, like, no, I don't want to go now because I want to go for another hour. Right. But then like, I know that if I stop or slow down, then it's going to interfere with her. But then it's like, I realize as I'm saying this, I'm turning red as I'm saying this. I realize though that it's like, that's based on a whole, it's based on a thought. It's based on a thought that like, I shouldn't finish right now. And that's the problem in that moment. It's a problem in that moment is the thought that I'm having about what should happen. And if I let that go, then that opens something up.
And men can learn how to stop at orgasm, pause, and let whatever is taking them to that point of no return subside. In other words, I have a whole teaching that I give my male clients called Back It Up. And it teaches them through solo pleasure how to know what those phases are, what the signs and signals are, and how to implement that. So you can stop at orgasm, let it calm down, and then keep going without losing erection or the arousal curve. So I think that it's so important to know that there are so many ways to enhance our sexual experience. And a lot of that comes from having permission, from having somebody be your guide and have the positive space for you to be in safely and tell your truth. Because look what you just did. You just spoke your truth. And you said you haven't said that before to other guys. And yet, why? Why aren't we? Why aren't we having open conversations, especially males? And to know that, you know, there are other secret keepers in the world, because I've trained hundreds of them, who really know their stuff, you know, and you have to be mindful that there are a lot of charlatans in the world, those of you watching and listening, people who say they're sex coaches and have no training at all. And I'm very, very dedicated to professional and ethical standards. That's why I started the organization that I have, because you need to have somebody who knows their stuff. It's very delicate to crack somebody open to their core and get into this intimate part of ourselves, that soul of self, that soul of our sexual self, and not have somebody who knows what they're doing, can help put you together again, but also to care for you, to honor you, to see you as respect worthy. And I'll say it, sacred. You know, this is a sacred relationship. I feel so honored when I work with a client and when I train a student.
I feel it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just having the conversation with you about it and having, just like a taboo conversation and talking about some of the things that we talked about, it feels really good. It feels really sacred. It feels like
Yeah.
where no one's like at the time that people are watching this, even though as of the recording, no one's watched it yet, I can already feel openings, like I could feel the openings happening for people as they watch this. And that feels pretty good. And it's like, it's a reminder that there are so many different like secrets, as you say. There's so many pieces to the conversation. It's not just we haven't had sex in 15 years or we haven't had sex in a year. And it's like that, like that's the fact, but there's so much to talk about inside of that. So like if you feel shameful about that or embarrassed or whatever it is, or it's hard, just like you got to realize there's so much to talk about. There's so many layers of it to talk about, instead of just like, you don't have to accept, what it is as a life sentence, if you will. There's a lot to be discussed.
No, there's always help and there's always hope. When I work with a client for the first session, I meet a new couple or a new individual. And at the end of the session, I always end every session by saying, and what did you take away from this session that was maybe your biggest aha or the greatest gift or the shift you've had? I change it so that it's more organic in the moment. And 90% of the people, maybe 100, say, you gave us hope for the first time in a long time. And, that just fills me, and it gives me the energy I need to keep going at 75.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And then what you said also is hope, because when you're on purpose and you're living a life that you feel passionate about, and you have a mission and a vision that you're passionate about that lights you up, that like you're the example of what that looks like to live a life like that. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. We'll wrap. There's so many other things I want to talk about. So this is probably a good exit point. And then I would love to have you on again in the future and talk about some more stuff, because I think there's so much. Okay. Give me a sec. My computer just did something weird. Now I can't find you. Oh my God. All right, there you are. That's a new feature I didn't know my computer had. Okay. You have a offering, and I want to make sure if there's anybody listening, I know there is, that wants to connect with you outside of this. You're giving away a gift, and can you talk about what that is? And then I'll make sure that I link it in the email when I send that out.
Absolutely. So 2 things I want to share. One is there's a free gift on my home website. That's drpattibritton.com, and it's a free ebook that, interestingly enough, embodies the sacred around female sexual pleasure. And it's kind of a fun, cute how-to short book, but it's an interactive workbook. So I think you'll get a lot of value about that. Okay. And then I decided recently I'm going to be stepping down as the CEO of my Sex Coach U training organization, because I want to have more time to do writing and working on a documentary about my life and career. And I'm opening up an elite group as a mastermind in September of 2022. So you can pop over to brittonmastermind.com and learn more about it.
Give me that in the email, and I'll link it as well.
Yeah, I'll give you that as well.
That, and the mastermind, let me get this right. Is that for people that want to be a sex coach, or is that for people that want to work with the sex coach? Like, who's it for?
That mastermind is for practicing sexuality clinicians. So you already have to be working with clients, because it's really clinical supervision and business support towards success, and a peer group of really high achievers in the field of sexology. So that's my new project, my new passion project, and people can pop over and see if it fits them.
I love that. Awesome. I love it. Dr. Patti, you're a freaking rock star. Thank you so much for,
Thank you.
Can I acknowledge you for, you've obviously found like your channel in life, and you've like fully committed to it. Like, I think we only talked about 0.01% of even what you're doing. I mean, you're doing so much and creating so much. And I know that to be have the vitality that you do and the clarity that you do and the passion and joy that you do, you really have to be committed to like learning yourself and having a practice that keeps you grounded and clear and focused and clear out your shit as often as you need to. And you've done that. And so I really want to acknowledge you for your commitment to like yourself so that you can be here for so many people like you are. So thank you.
Thank you. It is my joy, and it's my joy to have conversations like this one. This was such a high level, high vibration conversation that was filled with so much beautiful, beautiful energy. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. Well, I'll hit stop. Everybody at home. This is just a point I want to say if you're inspired by what came out today. If something opened up for you, then like you really have to take action. Like that's the next step. So don't go on YouTube just yet or wherever you go from here. Like go grab the free gift and dive in and there's something there for you. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.